This thing is much louder than it was before. These are my presents over here.
What did you get?
I got some photographs.
Oh, nice.
And a little cube that has my picture inside of it.
Oh.
Like a glass cube with a little, a face of mine. It says Kill Bill. It's really neat. I never saw anything like it. I told them to make some more.
Do you often get gifts at conventions? Do you often get gifts at conventions, or?
I always see stuff that I've never seen before, like people make the most interesting things, you know, people make drawings and paintings and, you know, and all kinds of things that are so interesting. Some very artistic people out there. I see things and they just absolutely blow me away. I have no talent in that area. You know, God has given me a lot of things, but that isn't one of them. And it's so amazing. In fact, there's a girl sitting right there who did something. It's mind-boggling. It looks like a photograph.
Awesome.
But at the same time, you can tell that it isn't. And I don't know how anybody could do that. I'll see a poster for a movie that I did 20 years ago that I never saw before, or a really interesting picture of something. Oh. This is the damn thing right here. Look at that. I mean, wow. Man. Wow. That is like, forget about it, man. Yeah, I can't even draw a circle.
So I got a question after yesterday's panel. The infamous ear scene in Reservoir Dogs, how long did they take to make that scene or to shoot it?
We only shot that movie in like 10 days, like 2 weeks really, so everything was sort of choreographed in rehearsals before we ever shot any film. And we did everything in a warehouse that was empty. And the director of photography just drew everything on the floor with a piece of chalk, like where everybody was gonna stand, you know, like there was a circle that was supposed to be my pole that I was leaning on, you know. And so he knew where all of his shots were gonna be. And so by the time we got in there to do it, we didn't have to waste a lot of time trying to figure out, oh, well, I'm gonna be over here, and that guy's gonna be over there, and my gun's gonna be over here. And we already had it all figured out almost like a stage play. But the ear scene was really hard for me because I never got to rehearse it because I didn't really know what I was gonna do. Like in the script it said, Mr. Blonde maniacally dances around the manacled cop. You know, you read something like that, you go, what do I do? I dance around the manacled cop. And I said I didn't understand. And I kept saying to him, what in the name of God do you want me to do, man? I can't dance. And at that point, he was supposed to be handcuffed. And we figured out the duct tape thing later. We made that up later. It seemed a little more, the duct tape was more I don't know, it was more cruel, I thought, or more unpredictable. But I didn't, every time we got to that point of rehearsal, and he would say, okay, Michael, you know, what are we gonna do? And I'd say, I don't know. And he said, well, okay, well, you know, we'll figure it out on the day. We'll figure it out on the day. And so finally the day came and I had to do it. And I was like, oh my God. And so all I really wanted to know was how much much room that I have on either side of him in the freaking chair, you know. It's like he's over there and I'm over here. Mr. Orange is bleeding to death. And like once I get over there, how much room do I have to dance around the manacle cop? And so he gave me enough, like about 5 feet on each side, so I could get the razor out of my boot. That's why I threw the gas can, because I wasn't gonna set it down, you know. If I'm gonna start a fire, I don't want that thing sitting there, so I threw it. And then he was gonna use a song from the Blasters called the Barroom Blitz. And he didn't have the rights for Steelers Wheel. And he said, listen, I want to use Stuck in the Middle, but I don't have the rights for it, so I can't use it. And we're probably going to end up with Barroom Blitz. And I said, oh man, well, I said, you know, I think Stuck in the Middle would probably be a lot better. And he was like, yeah, well, I said, so why don't I do one take where I actually sing to that one? So if you do get the rights, we'll be able to use it. And so then I was really stuck because I wasn't really sure I knew the words. So I asked him if he would play it for me. So they got a boom box and they put it on the set. You guys got to remember, there was nobody had cell phones and all that shit. You know, iPads and the internet that didn't exist, okay? And they just had a big boombox with a cassette tape in it with that song on it. And so when I went over to Tim and I'm sitting there looking at him, you know, and their roll on it, they just hit the button and it started to play. So I was actually listening to it. And it wasn't that hard to come up with a little half-assed kind of thing that I did. It was all I could think of, because I can't dance at all. But I thought it would look like a guy who thought he was cool and he was a cool dance, right? And I thought I could get away with it by doing that. And then the more that I kind of did it, I started to turn around in a circle and I started to kind of get off on it and it became fun. And then I had to go to the car and get the gas out of the car and come back in and by the time it got to the ear, you know, I couldn't, it was too awkward to reach over him. And I couldn't get a hold of it to cut it off. And so I just jumped on him, I sat on him so that I could get a hold of it and get it off. And so most of that stuff happened like in the spur of the moment, you know, because they just rolled on everything no matter what I did. And he shot a version where the camera is right at the side of Kirk's head and you actually see the damn thing getting sawed off. And they obviously had a prosthetic with a tube that came up the back of his neck. And so as it slowly came off, the blood was shooting out, you know. And it was getting all over my face and everything. And I was like, God, you know. And then I had it and I threw it and then he wanted to do, she doesn't feel well. She's remembering that scene, she's gonna pass out. And so then they did another version where he goes, you know what, I don't want to necessarily see you do it. And I said, okay, man. So when I jumped on him, he just panned over to the wall, and you just see this green wall. And you can hear Kirk's going, whatever he's saying. And then I step into frame holding it. And it's weird because you think that you saw me doing it, but you didn't really. Because the version that's in the movie, that stayed in the movie, is the one where you don't actually see me do it. I have it in my hand. But because you heard it, you subconsciously think that you saw it. And that's part of the genius of him, is to have concocted something like that, you know. And he also, I just recently found out that he had to show a lot of stuff to the censors because of the nature of the film and some of the language back then, which people didn't say shit like that in the movies back then, which was why it was so effective. But he had to show a lot of things to the censors, and he knew that if he showed the censor that thing coming off, that they would say, well, sorry, you know what, you can't use that. And he'd say, well, okay. And so he would have given them an okay, so that later, if there was something he really wanted, they would have to let him do it, because he had acquiesced, you know what I'm saying? He was playing along. And, but when I had it, I didn't know what to do with it. And you can see the look on my face when I'm holding it. I really, honestly, I didn't know what to do with it. Because we had never rehearsed it. And I had it, man, and I was like, man, okay. And if you watch the movie again, you can look at my face, and I honestly did not know what to do with it. And he was standing by the camera, and he was saying, Michael, throw it, you know, toss it, get rid of it, get rid of the ear. And I was thinking, yeah, you know. And I didn't really just want to get rid of it. So I went, hey, can you hear me? I started talking in it. I mean, it was an ear, right? So, you know, it seemed like a logical thing to do. And it seemed to that guy, it would be so horrible to do that. I thought, wow, man, if we really want to make this something dark, you know, I'm going to really fuck with this guy. I'm going to talk in it. And then I threw it, you know, and then it was all funny. But then like 2 days later, and nobody said anything about it. And like 2 days later, Quentin comes up to me and he goes, hey, Michael, you remember when you were talking in the ear? And I go, yeah. And he goes, it's in the movie. We're going to leave it in the movie. And I was like, whoa, okay, that's cool, you know. I get a writing credit. And he goes, no. And I said, oh, well, you know, I never thought it wasn't going to be in the movie, but thank God that he left it in there. But honestly, that's really exactly how it happened. Yeah.
So let's see if we have some fans that want to ask questions. I know it's late, but it's still interesting. Yeah, come on.
I have a question about Donnie Brasco, the infamous restaurant scene with
Mr. Moto.
Yes. Can you tell something about it? How it was? Was it a fun shoot?
Yeah, it was a fun shoot because there was a lot of fun people to work with. You know, man, you can't be really good in a movie if the movie is really crappy. It doesn't matter, man, if you're Marlon Brando. You can't save it if there's not great production values and great actors around you. And when you have people like that around you, you know, it's pretty easy to rise to their level, you know, and a lot of stuff in a picture like that gets made up in the spur of the moment. You know, there's what's written, you know, they come in, they say this, they say that, they do this, they go there. But when you're actually filming it, you know, things come up, like interaction naturally comes up between people in a conversation, and nuances and subtleties and things that you don't necessarily know, you can't predict it. And we did a lot of joking around. Like Al Pacino, he tells a lot of really stupid jokes that are really not funny, man. But because it's him, everyone goes, oh man, go, man, go. And seriously, they're not that funny. And Jimmy Russo does this impression of Robert De Niro that it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. And he also does a Mickey Rourke imitation that's even more funny. And he would start doing it when you least expect it. And when we were gonna beat up that guy in the restaurant, right before we went in to shoot that, Jimmy started doing his impressions. And we all thought it was funny, but Al particularly, it was so funny to him that he couldn't even stand up. I mean, he would literally double over onto his knees laughing. And Jimmy would keep doing it because he thought it was so funny to make Al laugh. And so when we went in to do that thing, nobody could remember what we were supposed to say. Everyone forgot their dialogue, and we were just laughing and laughing. And then finally, when it came to the fight thing, I mean, that was pretty easy. That's just choreographed movie punching, you know, throwing the poor guy around in the bathroom. But that really happened. That actually happened. There's a lot of stuff in the movie that was changed from the book, or changed that Joe Pistone actually did. But there's a lot of stuff that really, really did happen. And the wire in the boot, and the had to beat that guy up was because he did have a wire in his boot. And that actually really happened.
So we have time for one more question. Who wants to read the last question for
I
today?
got all the time in the world. I ain't going
Come
nowhere.
on. Yeah, I will. I can come.
Or maybe I am.
Erstmal hallo Oberhausen. Hi Michael. I'm Rowan. Thank you. My question is, what kind of person is Quentin Tarantino? How is the work with Quentin Tarantino?
Well, buddy, if I knew the answer to that, I'd probably go down in history with Albert Einstein. You know, nobody knows, man. He's the most interesting guy I've ever met. He's the most creative guy I've ever met. He's been one of my best friends that I've ever had. He's a very generous man, emotionally, like an open door. He lets you find a character and lets you do stuff that you would never imagine you could even do. And he's like if you had to make a computer and put in that thing every single fact about every single movie that was ever made, in science fiction and film noir and westerns and gangster movies and science fiction, horror pictures, martial arts films, he knows about all of them and who did them and when they were made and what happened to the people in them and how they did in the box office. And it's amazing. I mean, it's mind-boggling how much he knows. And but he's a private guy. You know, he's a bit of a private man too, and I get that because I'm like that. And he doesn't like to hang around. You know, he's not one of those guys. He'll go out with everybody, but he's not the rah-rah, guy. He's very I don't know, man. I mean, he worked in a video store. I mean, I can tell you things about him that would, be pretty interesting, but I don't know if we have enough time for that, but
I don't think so.
I'll tell you one thing. He has a big house, and in his house, there's a room, and he actually, at one point in time, the video store that he worked at when he was a kid was going out of business. And the VHS was over. And he went to the store and he bought the entire inside of the store. He bought all the racks and all the tapes and even the counter and the register and everything in there. And he had it all put into his house in a room. So when you walk in the room, you're in the video store that he used to work in. And it's, you know, pretty bizarre. But it's a genius thing too, you know? It's like he has a room that is filled with game boards of every game that was ever made, of every board game that was ever made, even ones that you didn't think that they ever made a game out of. He has it, you know? And the lunchboxes of shows and movies that they made that you never knew they made a lunchbox of, he has them. It's the weirdest thing in the world. I mean, he has the greatest collection of movie stuff of anybody I've ever seen. He loves movies and he lives for it. And, you know, for my money, he makes the best ones. You know, I love him. I really honestly do.
All right,
Thank you, buddy. I know that was a long answer, man.
You're still around, so they can still come say hi. But unfortunately, someone else is still coming up here today. But
I'd rather answer questions than go back to that table, to be
I
honest with
bet. But on your way out, maybe they will shoot you some.
you. Yeah, but if on the way out, I'll get stuck and I won't be able to go anywhere. So it'd be better to just sit here and keep asking questions. Right?
Then you gotta figure out.
Somebody's got to have a question. Come on. Ask him. What is it, man? Come up here, buddy. I'm taking over. There's nothing you can do about it.
My question is,
Yeah, go get a snack, yeah. Go get a beer, sweetie. Here's some chili. I'll be here. On the 50th question. Why don't you just go home? I'm just joking. You're wonderful.
can you tell something about the Hateful Eight? I mean not the story. I mean, is it influenced? It's a snow western influenced by. One moment, I have to think about the name. It's called in German Leichen pflastern seinen Weg.
What's it called?
Weiß jemand zufällig, wie der Film auf Englisch ist?
Someone's gotta translate that for me. Nobody wants to say what it is. I never seen that, man. I don't know. You know what it is? It's an homage to all of his movies, okay? Even the cast, you see, there's a reason why Sam's in it. There's a reason why I'm in it. There's a reason why Tim Roth is in it. Everybody in the movie has something to do with a previous film that he's made. And there are statements that are made that are quotes from people who've been in other movies that he's done. And there's things that happen in the story that have to do with things that happen in stories of his other movies. It's weird. It's like he put everything together. You gotta pay attention and you gotta be a real big fan of his to catch it or to know it. You know, it was a challenge in the beginning even because he said, the first time I read it, he said, you know, Michael, there's a lot of mysteries in there, and I want you to call me and tell me if you think you know what they are. And man, you know, I read that thing like 10 times, and I was like, every time I read it, I thought I discovered another mystery, and I'd call him to tell him, hey, you know, I figured out, I know what that means now, and I know what this means now. And he would be, yeah, well, maybe, you know, he'd say, yeah, well, sort of, yeah, kind of. And I was like, I went insane trying to figure out, even my name, Joe Gage, believe it or not, there's a lot of meaning behind Joe Gage. And he, I don't know where he gets it in his brain, but he's very meticulous, and it's very, it's a story about the movies he's made, set right after the Civil War. It happens during a snow blizzard. It's about bounty hunters, and it's about, there's nothing that it's not about. It's impossible. I wish, like if you see the trailer, you go, oh yeah, I get it, yeah. Oh, so Kurt's gonna hang this woman, and it's not about that, okay? It's about a whole lot of other things, and that's why it's so hard to make a trailer of the movie, because it's a really complicated story. And until you actually see it, it's kind of impossible to describe it.
So is it my chance to take over?
You can take it away, baby.
I know. Well, I have to. I do love you up here. I really do. I love the stories you tell. But for today, I
The
have
Sons
to
of
give
Anarchy
you
are coming back
No, they're not.
because they're not finished telling you about their show,
No.
where none of them actually got to ride motorcycles.
No, you know what?
Jesus, God in heaven.
No, you know what's gonna happen
I'm just joking.
is
Actually, I'm not. I'm sure there's somebody else they're waiting for, so I'm not going to be a Bogart. You guys are great, man. Thanks so much.
thank